Hello and welcome to South Asia Focus. I am Smita Prakash. This week we have with us senior journalist and an expert on West Asian and South Asian affairs, Dr. Wael Awad, who will speak to us on the current crisis in Afghanistan, the visit of US Secretary of State John Kerry to Kabul, and the future of democracy in Afghanistan. But before that, here's a brief background report. Presidential elections were held in Afghanistan in April and then a second round in June. The results of the first round showed that national coalitions Abdullah Abdullah and independent candidate Ashraf Ghani were neck to neck, with Abdullah poised to win. But after the second round, Ashraf Ghani emerged the winner amidst allegations of massive election fraud. The election chief Ahmad Yusuf Ahmadi announced some 8.1 million votes had been cast, far in excess of the 6.6 million turnout in the polls on April 15th, and almost on par with the outgoing President Hamid Karzai's first electoral victory in 2004. It far exceeded most independent observers' estimates. Thus, Mr. Ghani was said to have secured about 4.5 million votes, around 56%, against Mr. Abdullah's 3.5 million, that is 44%. Abdullah Abdullah has rejected the results of the second round and hinted that he might set up a parallel government. US Secretary of State John Kerry was in Kabul on Friday to bring about a consensus. Meanwhile, violence escalated in Afghanistan. A suicide bomber hit Afghan and foreign forces near a clinic in the eastern province of Parwan, killing at least 16 people. Dr. Awad, thank you for speaking with us. The US Secretary of State is in Afghanistan, and clearly the US is in a state of worry, anxiety over what is happening in Afghanistan. Can America solve the crisis in Afghanistan today?
Well, I think if we look at the chronology of the events in Afghanistan, we will understand even the American intervention in Afghanistan meant to bring and promote democracy there. So unless and until democracy and institutions are established in a very strong way, there cannot be democracy in Afghanistan. And I think this election reflects the kind of anxiety that the US is facing. Because first of all, it's going to be a very tough exercise for the US to accept the results, since there are lots of frauds have been reported in the media. Even Abdullah himself have projected and showed on TV what was those communication between certain officers in some of the province. Secondly, also the United States.
That audio which has gone out, it's only an audio recording, right? I mean, will that hold strength that there was fraud?
Well, there were lots of reports, not only from that. Even the delay in the result had no other option just to mention except there is a fraud. Because the first result, if you remember, the first phase of the election have shown that 45% was gained by Abdullah Abdullah against 32% of Ghani. So therefore, the second round should have been at least, if not equal to the same number, not that big margin that the Abdullah felt that there is some
1
kind of...
1 million votes
Absolutely.
went to Ghani. And
yeah.
I mean, the second round showed that there were more votes cast than actually the people who went to vote.
Exactly.
Right?
That is the point why they have put extra ballots inside the boxes, and that's why they have to be more transparency and really an accountability on Hamid Karzai himself to show that this election was fair and conducted in a good manner. But the way the event taking place in Afghanistan really give you an indication that it is maybe Iraq in the making.
Oh, that's deeply distressing, because there was so much of hope, pinned on this election, and one saw so much of enthusiasm the way Afghans went to vote. There were international observers during the election. How come they didn't see that there was fraud going on?
It's a large country. It's a big country. It's a tribe rule. It's a two different issue we have to look here. There is a civil kind of a society and there is a tribe society. Therefore, for the international community to cover each part of Afghanistan, it's impossible. And there are people who vote according to loyalty to the ground, to the tribe warlord or the area where they are. They wanted to vote, whether even in their ethnic belonging, they wanted to vote to these people. The first round was reportedly good and a good turnout despite the fact the violence was on. Now, the second round, there was some kind of misplaced in certain area where they focus and they got all the votes against Abdullah. If that is the more difficult part for the government of Afghanistan and for the international observer really to come in a clear picture on this. There is no white print on this paper. We don't know exactly what is happening there. Why? Because it's a widespread country, so it's difficult to say that it has been observed by the international observer throughout the country.
Because it was neck to neck in the first round.
Yeah, exactly.
And then suddenly, so was it a kind of a, I mean, there are people who are saying it was a coup mounted by Ghani. Would you term it as a coup?
Look, there are two scenarios here. One, people says that Ghani have struck a deal with the US that he are going to sign a security accord, which Karzai refused to sign it, which will be signed, and they will ensure that the American forces stay in Afghanistan, at least minimum forces, for a next decade. That is one of the issue. Second issue, which also worries us, that what kind of package that the Afghanistan economically has been struck with the Ghani. Why Abdullah still a good bargain to chips to do with business, because he have a good relation with the US, with the regional powers. Then what is the rule?
He probably did not give a guarantee that he would sign the document which Karzai didn't sign. And probably Ghani said he'd sign on the dotted line.
And that is exactly what's happening, because this is the issue where Abdullah was raising the corruption and in the government, including the frauds and other issues, malpractice by Karzai government, while Abdul Ghani is more close to Karzai. And therefore, if any kind of a deal is struck, Abdullah will be isolated. But let us also see, is there going to be a division of Afghanistan? Are we going to see again a civil war in Afghanistan? These are worryings. We have to watch and see what will happen post 2014.
Because this kind of uncertainty, if it carries on for too long, it gives more muscle power to the insurgents. Would you say that that's the case?
I think we have to see it is compounded on the actual security situation in Afghanistan, the political crisis. Why? Taliban and their allies have already made up their mind. They do not accept this government. They didn't even accept the election. Therefore, they will not accept any kind of result in the government. They want a change of government in the center. Therefore, this will continue. The political rift between the rival parties, that is what is worrying us, and it's compounded on the actual degenerated security situation in Afghanistan. This will make it more complicated issue in Afghanistan and will be more difficult for the regional parties really to play any major role in any kind of compromise, unless and until there is struck a deal between Ghani and Abdullah, and everybody should have thinking a vision of the future of Afghanistan and the stability there, rather than they're self-interested in dealing with the national issues.
Earlier in the show, you just said that you feared that Afghanistan could go the Iraq way. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, see, when the United States were in Iraq, they already tried to strike a deal with Maliki, also on the security on a military basis there. Maliki have opposed to it that they wanted to prosecute the American soldiers if they violated the law of the land. American refused. Similar fashion it is going to in Afghanistan. But Karzai also, you remember, we met Karzai and he talked very openly about the rift between him and the American administration in regards to financing the frauds, financing the forging the deals and contract to different kind of warlords. Secondly, also because of the security arrangement with the US. So that's why he denied the American of signing this. Now, if the Americans suddenly pull out and there is no sign of any security there, then you are creating chaos in the region.
So you see a civil war-like situation. Okay, now tell me, what is the role played by Pakistan in all this?
Pakistan is there to play a major role because the US is wanted the military bases in Afghanistan, which will have the new phase of the American supremacy, which is called the drone culture. The drone culture will have, and they need Kuwait very badly for this. So therefore, Pakistan has to play a major role in the future of Afghanistan. And therefore, the American cannot ignore their long life allies Pakistan.
So it works in Pakistan's interest and it works in America's interest if they have a pliable person as president of Afghanistan, and that would probably be Ghani. Is that it?
I don't see the future of Afghanistan really lies with Ghani on all. It is the role of the local leaders in the regional leaders who should have put more pressure. It is the local and the leaders of the United States should really come in more objective. What is the objective of ruling Afghanistan?
To bring democracy in Afghanistan. That everybody agrees. But
no, but not only democracy. They have a gas in the CIS country.
Oh, okay.
They need the security. They need to secure passage of those gas through Afghanistan. Unless and until they can secure it, they need a stable Afghanistan. If you are looking at the socio-economic uplifting of the people, if the people, the region has to be, generated and gain from this prosperity of gas and oil in the CIS, then we can see a kind of a compromise between Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, and the rest of the neighboring country. But the problem is the compulsion of the international interference in Afghanistan have made the situation very complicated.
Now, there's talk about a national government in in Afghanistan. But at the same time, you have this odd situation where today you literally have three presidents. You have Ghani, Abdullah, and you have Karzai. So, is it a national government or is it a parallel government that one is seeing in the near future?
It will be difficult to have a smooth transformation or transition of political power from a Karzai to his successor. One, because of the current crisis which you mentioned about it. Secondly, also because of the ongoing war inside the country. And if the supporter of each party really stick to their guns, to their position, then we may say in the coming days it's more of a rift within segregation of Afghanistan. That's what worries me, actually.
So you don't see the possibility of a national government, of some kind of a deal or negotiation that can work via America, that these two come on the table and form a national government?
I think the reshuffling of the American officials visiting Afghanistan in a short span of time, if you realize, if you noticed the last 2 months, there were so many visits of officials in security and also covert operation, sudden visit. McCain himself was there, and then we had Kerry, then we had the German, then we had everybody is visiting the Cameroon. It is a matter of concern, and they wanted to reach a kind of a compromise on that part.
But that's not happening.
It's not going to happen in the near future unless and until both the candidates really sit down across the table and find a compromise on a formula, because the challenge to them is the same common challenge. It is the Taliban coming back, that they should put their vision first and then look for the future of stable Afghanistan rather than going for the decisive policy, which is decisive policy that can break Afghanistan into pieces, and that will be the most unfortunate part for the South Asian region as a whole.
What will be the impact on India and South Asia? Is India adopting the hands-off position as far as this current crisis is concerned?
I don't think India can stay idle in this crisis, really. India have enjoyed a good relation with Karzai government and after the fall of Taliban, and India have built up a very big trust within the Afghanistan society. But it is a worrisome for India, it's a worrisome for Russia, for Iran, for the rest of the world, for China as well. So therefore, I think it is going to be a very, very big challenge for the rest of the region. America and the West would like to see the regional countries playing a major role in the future of Afghanistan. And I think India should have a proactive role beside its role as it has been done on improving the economy and the socio-economic position of the Afghani people. India should have really to worry at the security part, where you see the spread of radicalism coming from the ISIS in the Arab country, which we are seeing the anarchy there. This could be expanded toward India after this vacuum. And this, if the vested interest country take advantage of this, then India has to face a very major challenge of terrorism growing in this. And I think it's the time, high time, that there should be a global fight against terrorism by all the country to ensure that this part of the world enjoy the prosperity rather than enjoying destruction as we have seen 20 years ago.
But any overt role played by India in Afghanistan is seen as regional power play between India and Pakistan, where the two countries fight their war in Afghanistan, in a third country. So how does one avoid that pitfall?
I think the confidence building measure between India and Pakistan should be strengthened with the government. You have two civilian government in India and Pakistan with majority. They have voted for them in their favor. Therefore, I think they should strengthen their hand. They should have more of measures taken together and really putting their vision, what could be the future benefit for all the country. Both the country have similar common grounds of low poverty, illiteracy, and lots of other socio-economic issues, which they should be sitting together across the table.
But they can't seem to see the same view as far as Afghanistan is concerned. When it comes to Afghanistan, they have different views.
That is the suspected, because everybody has the suspicion of what is the intention of the other party.
Correct.
India, on its part, is the only country in the world till date which have contributed for the welfare of Afghanistan. Who else in the the country or in the world really have contributed to Afghanistan. Do you think 10 years of occupation really helped the Afghani people? No, it did not help. India, for the last 10 years, they have only doing roads, hospitals, and doing good for the infrastructure of Afghanistan, $2 billion. India have a long and a huge investment in Afghanistan, and in Afghanistan is a very rich country. They have to explore their natural resources, where India can play a major part, where Pakistan also, at the other hand, is also a failing economy, and it's falling down, deteriorating. Unless and until they utilize the neighboring wealth, you cannot see prosperity in this part of the world.
Thank you very much for speaking with us.